Jack and I became friends at Odeo, finding little mini projects to work on within the larger scope of Odeo, and realized that we enjoyed working together and we shared some of the same design philosophies and stuff like that. And so we found little reasons to work together, and
or made them.
Or yeah, just made up reasons. And so, and then like so that's what, basically Odeo didn't work because we weren't emotionally invested in that. When you're emotionally invested in something, that will carry you through any bad time because you just won't, you'll be sort of muted to all of the naysayers. Like, or either that or you're either muted or you hear it differently. Like when someone once called, early on, they called Twitter's the Seinfeld of the internet. It's a website about nothing. And I was like, I love Seinfeld. Let's put that as a testimonial on the front page. That guy was probably like, I was insulting you. And I was like, this is great. And you know, like this is how your mentality is when you love what you're doing. So you really, it's almost like you can't fail if you're really loving it, you know? And, or at least it feels that way. And that's what Jack and I felt. I mean, a lot of the stuff we did was like a joke. You know, like, and it was fun. It was a joke, but it was fun. Like, I remember when I said, you know what we should do? And I was like laughing too hard to even tell Jack. And he was like, what? And I was like, we should make the tweets just really big on a web page. Like, when you tweet, we should make a whole web page. It just says giant font Georgia. And he was like, that's so stupid, it's funny. And I was like, look at this mock-up, it's ridiculous. It's just giant words on one web page for no reason. And we were like, okay, let's do it. And like, and then that became a thing. And then, you know, just like, look, this button says follow. And you know, is that weird? Is that weird to say, follow? It sounds a little creepy. Should we have it say watch? Whoa, that sounds really creepy. Well, I know we should have it say listen. Yeah, but you're not listening, it's text. Yeah, all right, follow, whatever. And then that becomes like a whole thing. Anyway, we were having a blast, and that was a key thing.
But the great thing was we never had to really think about building a business, building a company. It was all in service of the idea, right? We loved this. We loved using it. We saw it right away. You know, I had multiple moments. You had multiple moments of, you know, you're working so hard and things are going down. Things are difficult. You're getting a lot of criticism. But then you get this tweet and it changes everything because it's so magical. The first one for me was when we had an earthquake, and you were somewhere in Berkeley, and Ev was somewhere else, and Jeremy was in Oakland, and you, like at that time, you could actually see the phone buzz before you felt the earthquake, right? Because the technology moved faster than the Earth.
Yeah, right? It was crazy. For me, it was just an out-of-context tweet. I had watched enough Bob Vila when I was a kid to think that I could do some home improvement on my house in Berkeley. And on Bob Vila, they always, on this old house, they always tear up the carpet to reveal the beautiful hardwood floor underneath. So I said, I'll do that, but I'll start in the middle. And so I just ripped into it and found out there was no hardwood floor underneath. And, well, it was too late, so I was ripping it out, and there was a heat wave, and I was sweating, and I was ruining my house, basically, but I had to get rid of all of it now that I started. And then the phone buzzed in my pocket, and it was Ev tweeting, sipping a Pinot Noir after a massage in Napa Valley. And I just started laughing at how absurd that was. And for me, when I realized I was laughing, I was like, I'm laughing at something I'm building. Like, that means I love it. And just little fun things. Like, even though we were just having so much fun, I saved an early chat session. Sometimes I would work from home, and Jack and I would just chat a lot while we were building stuff. And the first day that Jack hooked up SMS to web and web to SMS, he was like, try it now. And I was like, doesn't work, and try it, and it doesn't work. And eventually it worked. And when it did work, and I got the message on my phone, I was like, I got it. And I wrote, come in here, Watson, I need you.
But you were at your house.
I was in my house. But still, and also that's not really the quote. But you get the point. I was pretending like we were inventing something important. And we were. It turns out we were.
One of the things that I thought was really magical at the company early on is, like, as Bid said, Odeo was fairly directionless. We just didn't know where to go. And it was because we had no passion for what we were building. And Twitter was something that we loved using daily, and we laughed at and we cried at. And
right.
you know, it was a way to make the world feel very, very small. And the technology actually took on the personality of the company. It took on the personality of Biz. It took on the personality of me, of Ev, of anyone who would use it. And what was most amazing about it is we realized somewhere along the line that it wasn't like a MySpace. It wasn't just for music. It wasn't just for news. It wasn't just for tweeting about what you're having for breakfast. We saw differences tweet by tweet as people changed their day and changed their lives. And it was just the biggest surprise about Twitter for me was how people came to it and the velocity they came to it and the breadth that they communicated with it on, right? And just how dynamic that range was. And it was also a reflection of the company and how dynamic the company then became.
That's a good point about company culture and how it does just like Jack anthropomorphizes a city, you can anthropomorphize a company. I mean, a company culture will take place whether you pay attention to it or not. An emergence will occur, and the company will become sort of a superorganism that has its own life force to it, separate from all of the individuals. And you can take your chances and hope that turns out to be a positive thing. And it did for us, mostly I think just based on the character of the individuals in question. But now, I mean, we were lucky in that regard, and I think it's really important to pay attention to a company culture, almost like you would your product. Like you can almost imagine assigning a product manager to company culture, yeah, and saying, let's pay attention to. And it's not like it's not something you architect and then follow. It's something you watch and you look for patterns and you say, well, you look for bright spots. What about our company is fantastic that we want to encourage more of? And then you just you go there. You can't blueprint it, but you can shepherd it.
You can strive for it, I think. And one of the things we did poorly in the early days at Twitter is communicate with each other, which was funny because we were building a communications tool, and we weren't communicating with each other. And one of the things, to Biz's point, is that we had our ops team was not communicating with our engineering team, and this was actually the source of most of our downtime. Like, they just weren't having conversations with each other. And one of the realizations I had and had in Square as well is, if you have friction within the company, if you have friction within the culture, if there's negative energy within the culture, it will manifest in the product. It will manifest in the service itself, and your customers will see it. And if you're doing that, you're putting yourself before the customers, and that's just rude and selfish. And we shouldn't be rude or selfish. But
yeah.
we had multiple occurrences of where a simple conversation kept the site up, right? And a simple conversation fixed things.
So Zanga didn't really work out. At one point, it was growing really fast, and it was amazing. But the thing about Zanga, though, is Zanga's company culture didn't go the right way. We didn't pay attention to it. My friends started hiring a lot of people out of like consulting agencies and stuff, and it just, like, I had this. My vision for Zanga was, I was living in Boston at the time, so I said, let's put it in Cambridge near MIT. Let's get a lot of cool young creative engineers and folks right out of MIT and build a culture of like a maker culture of experimentation and building. And one of the other guys was like, no, let's put it in New York City and let's rent a cheap place near the Port Authority, which is not good. And so the culture just wasn't right, and I was too green to realize that I could work to change the culture, so I quit. And then when I quit, I was horrified because we ran out of money. I lived on credit cards in New York City, paid my rent with my credit cards, and so I maxed them all out, and I was way in debt. And then I quit, and then I moved into my mom's basement back in Massachusetts, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I loved building interfaces for all those people to express themselves, and now I'm on the other side of the screen, like, with a blog, and I'm just blogging from my mom's basement, and I have $50,000 in debt. Like, why did and I asked for my job back, and they were like, no. And I was like, oh man, I just made a huge mistake.
But the one thing that we really paid a lot of attention to right away that we learned from Twitter is just how important that communication within the company is, and how important the culture is. And one of the things that I'm really proud of that we did early on in Twitter is we did these Friday all hands, which we called tea time, which was a way at the end of the week to celebrate everything that happened during the week. And the original design principle was to have tea, but everyone grabbed beers out of the refrigerator. So
Jack had this like classy idea, like let's have
it's 4 p.m.
teas.
Let's have some tea.
Yeah, and people are like, but there's beer.
There's beer. There's wine. So it became all about beer and wine, but it still became this like celebration at the end of the week of, look at all the stuff we did. Look at all the stuff we messed up.
Yeah.
Look at how we're doing, and look at, here's all the new people that are joining the company.
Not only that, it was a reverse. It was kind of a reverse of Google had something called TGIF, but the way they did TGIF is the executives would stand up on stage and tell people things, and then take questions. And I never asked a question because there was all these people, and I was too nervous. I'm not going to stand up in front of all these smart people and ask something that might be dumb. We flipped it around, and we just, like, Jack and I would, like, kick it off. Like, okay, it's tea time, and then we would sit down, and then everybody who had something to say would stand up. And it was fun because some of the designer slides would be great, and then the ops guy slides would be terrible. And there'd just be, like, small white type on a black screen. But it was everyone getting a chance, whether they were comfortable or not, talking in front of people and communicating.
Yeah. But like you said earlier, it was a product inside the company.
It was. It ended up being like highly, like sort of, as the company grew, it became the most expensive meeting in the company.
It's a production.
It became a production. And I've been to Jack's town squares that he has, and that's like visiting the set of a TV show. I mean, it's like it's very efficiently run. It's fun. It's got great visuals. It's a story. It's storytelling.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell us about any particular situation? I mean, the worst situation you have to face with Twitter. I'm talking about, that kind of situation that you wanted to leave everything and run, and how that situation was solved.
I think, the worst situation, unfortunately, kept happening again and again, which was the service would go down and people stopped talking. Like, we're building a communication platform, and little by little, we would have these moments where we would be down for hours.
Just turn off.
It would turn off, and people, like, it was silence. It was just the worst. You went from this, like, amazing, delightful conversation to silence, and it was the hardest feeling to have in the company. And it became very, very negative. And the way
also at the time, we didn't, because of the bad communication, we didn't know why it broke.
Yeah. So we did some very, very small things to fix it. With that, we had one engineer who kind of had the whole system in his head, and we hired these contractors from Pivotal Labs. And one of the things that the contractors did was they do this thing called pair programming. They actually verbalize as they program, right? So they're talking while they're programming. It's two people to one computer. And they started talking about everything they were seeing, and then more and more people learned about the problem and learned about the system. And the other thing that we did is we had no idea what was happening in the system, so we had no instrumentation. We were literally flying blind, right? So little by little, we built instruments. This is what the system is doing, and oh, that's interesting, why is it going so slow? We looked in the code, oh, this is why it's going so slow. We fixed that, and then another problem emerged, and we fixed that. And little by little, we fixed all these little tiny things, and along the way, add these instruments, add these logs, add these graphs where we could actually see what was happening. So this power of visualization and the power of like just seeing something in front of you instead of speculating, no, you did this, no, you did this, it's your fault. it solved everything for us, right? So little by little, we went away from our massive downtime issues to just having a healthy conversation in the company, and the product was healthier for it.
Yeah, and breaking it up into little pieces so that if one, because as a monolithic piece, when something broke inside, everything broke. But by breaking it up, we could say, well, that one thing's broken, just turn it off, but everything else will still work. And that was but yeah, Jack's right. When the service went down, and that was
you felt like a failure.
Horrible.
You felt like a failure, and it was just the worst feeling in the world.
And it happened a lot.
Happened a lot.
What do you see as the future in terms of getting real-time feedback from public in situations like that's happening in Turkey and Brazil, and maybe even going to some real-time voting systems and public policy, and how do you think technologies like the ones we're dealing with are going to affect that and help it or not?
Well, I think Biz set the tone early in the company around this, which is it's not about the technology we're building, it's about humanity. And I think the best sort of technologies disappear completely, and they really focus on our humanity. And we've been very fortunate at Twitter to host a lot of the conversations that you see play out on the world stage. And our job at the company is to make sure that the people who find it most relevant, the people that need to take action on it, see it instantly, see it in real time. And that's never been done before, never been accomplished before. So, the way I like to think about this is, the next Gloria Steinem, the next Martin Luther King, the next Gandhi, they're out there. They might be using Twitter today, and our job is to make sure that their message is being heard by people who will find it relevant, find it actionable, and can do something with it. And the other amazing thing about the service is the power of interpretation. We got a lot of flack in the early days about it being the Seinfeld of the internet, and people just update about what they have for breakfast. And I'm someone who does update about what they have for breakfast, and most people in the world don't care, but my mom loves it. She knows that I'm alive. She knows that I'm eating. She knows that I'm enjoying breakfast, and for her it's important. And what's so meaningful is it's not up to the company to enact these policies. It's up to the company to make sure that the venue for conversation is in place, and the technology works, and it stays up 100% of the time, and people come to it, and they decide how they want to use it. They decide how they want to interpret it. And hopefully, and ideally, the more people we have conversing in the public, the more positive things we have in the world. Because, I think the best thing, and my personal experience with it is when we were seeing protests of the Iranian election, before that, Iran was a black box to me. I had no idea what was going on in the country, and suddenly I saw their thoughts, they were sharing videos, they were sharing pictures, and that demystified everything. And it also showed me how they woke up, how they fell asleep, what they cared about, and that creates empathy. And if you have empathy, you can potentially minimize conflict, right? And Twitter has always been a public service, and that I think has been its strongest feature, is it reflects on the world constantly, and what the world thinks and what the world is doing. Yeah, and that is the world. If you ask 100 different people what Twitter is, you'll get more than 100 different answers. If you ask 100 different people what life is, you get more than 100 different answers. And that's what's so beautiful about these technologies, is that they're reflective of who's using them. It changes on a daily basis.
And a lot of Twitter is sort of user-defined. A lot of it was us watching for patterns and seeing what are people trying to do and how can we help them do it better. Usually I'm pretty happy-go-lucky, but I was like at the end of my rope because so many things have been going wrong, and I finally showed outward frustration, and Jack said, "Let's take a walk," and he said something like, "You're not allowed to do that." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like this, everything's terrible?" And he was like, "Yeah, but you're supposed to be happy, and that's your role. Like, be happy and make everyone else happy." And I mean, even though it doesn't sound like, it sounds like it was an order to be happy, but it didn't come across like that. It was a realization for me. It was like a really good piece of advice for me. I was like, oh, I felt good about it. Like, oh, am I making other people happy by being happy? And like that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And so when he told me that, I was like, I am going to do that. I'm going to try to do that every day.
What's interesting, like as we grew up as a company, I mean, you set the tone in the company, I set the tone in the company. So if I spend all my energy looking worried, the whole company gets worried because like, whoa, what does Jack know that we don't know that he's not telling us about?
We're
that we
running
should
out
be
of money.
Thinking about?
Like, what's happening?
Like, what's going on, right? So if you set a positive tone inside the company will be positive.
Yeah.
And this isn't just companies, this is organizations. It's just being a leader in general. Like the way you walk, the way you talk is going to set the tone for how people believe in our mission, our purpose, our way forward. And that was so important and something that we didn't pay a lot of attention to in the earliest days, but then we learned little by little like how important that culture is to actually the success of the product itself.
For sure. But my first priority was find someone to work with that I absolutely would not mind spending every single day with and doing the most important work of my life with, and then ask, people that are basically my, mentors and most trusted advisors for advice, and, it just went from there. And then the next people I hired was the same kind of criteria. Like, this has to be a person that is really nice, that is fun, obviously smart, all those things. But for me, humor is like a delivery mechanism for truth. And if we can't have a sense of humor at work, something's wrong. Because so many things come out in humor. It's just a way of couching so much truth, So it's all about people. Short answer, people.
Yeah, that was similar to Square. It was like just how much emphasis we put on.
You actually asked me what I thought for Square before Jack and I were working on, like, just for fun, we were working on an iPhone project prior to Square, and Jack just asked me, I want you to meet this guy named Jim. Mm-hmm. Why? Don't worry about it, just meet him. And, like, you just wanted my sort of unbiased opinion of him, because little did I know you were going to go into business with him. So,
yeah. It was definitely about the people and who you want to work with. And my co-founder at Square is someone who was my boss when I was 15 years old, and I've known him from St. Louis forever. And he had a problem in that he could not sell a piece of glass art because he couldn't accept credit cards. So we decided that we wouldn't start a company, but we would just solve his problem. And then maybe a company would emerge around that. And in fact, the company did emerge around it because we worked hard, we showed people, it resonated. Like the most amazing thing was like I could go out and I could take business credit card, I'd swiped it and I said, I just took money off your card. And the typical response was, wow, how'd you do that? I want to do that. I want to do it, especially Biz. Biz definitely said, I want to do that. I want to do more of that.
I need to borrow money from somebody.
I need more money. In fact, can I borrow some money from you?